2 weeks ago, I was having a fantastic day. It was sunny for the first time in months. I saw a squirrel on my way to class. That's always a highlight for me. Everything was just fantastic. And I thought to myself, this seems like the perfect day to try a Dark Souls game for the first time in my life. If you aren't familiar with Dark Souls, these are notoriously hard games. They are built around very challenging and unforgiving encounters. If you're used to just button smashing your way through fights and battles, you're not gonna be able to do that anymore. You will fight the same boss over and over and over again. Heck, it might not even be a boss. It'll be some dude that you need to defeat to get to the boss on the way. But you will fight the same guy over and 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 over. Let me now introduce you to my friend, Sisyphus. You've probably seen him in a meme at some point. He's pretty popular. He's kind of a big deal. But he comes from an essay from Albert Camus called The Myth of Sisyphus. In this essay, Sisyphus is this dude that's forced to push a boulder eternally up this mountain. And no matter how many times Homeboy gets it to the top, it will always fall back down. It is a metaphor for the absurdity of human life. Camus argues that life itself is inherently meaningless, yet man still continues to search for meaning, often in vain. This constant struggle for purpose and meaning in an indifferent universe is absurd. Yet Camus says that instead of being sad or whining about that, we should find meaning in the struggle itself. AKA, the only way for our boy Sisyphus to be happy given the absurdity of his situation is to revolt against it. Not to deny it, and not to escape it. So, in the world of Dark Souls here, I am Sisyphus. Or you, if you play Dark Souls, bless your heart, are Sisyphus. That's not a very profound conclusion, but it is the foundation for the philosophy I'm about to establish, so buckle up. The most fascinating part about the story of Sisyphus is that he knows he is stuck in this eternal cycle. That is why he continues to push it. Because he knows he will never get to the top, he's able to find fulfillment in the act of pushing the boulder itself. Now, me in a Dark Souls game, on the other hand, I certainly hope to beat the boss when I fight it 300 times. If I knew I was just predestined to never finish a fight going into it, I would probably have a pretty bad time. That would probably suck. So why does Sisyphus keep pushing the boulder? Well, here's the thing. Even though the goal of a game is to complete the game or at the least get past an encounter, what really keeps us playing is the engagement in the process itself. When you fight the same dude over and over, the satisfaction doesn't just come from finally beating it, it comes from all those small wins along the way. Oh, you can actually recognize an attack pattern. You make it to the second stage of a fight. You can land a parry that you couldn't before. Those are the things that turn you into Sisyphus, because you're enjoying the struggle. Even when people do beat Dark Souls, they go on to New Game Plus. They play the next game in the series. They speedrun. I mean, what do you think they do? Go outside? No. The moment we reach the top of one hill, we willingly look for another. So it was never really about winning. It was about wanting to struggle for something. Now, do we apply that same logic to real life? I feel like the default is no. I think the default is to be looking forward to the relief of our struggles. Oh, I'll be happy when it's the end of the workday. Oh, when it's the weekend. Oh, I'll be happy when I can go on vacation. We say, oh, I'll be happy when I can get the boulder to the top of the hill. Albert Camus would look at that way of life and see it as futile, because we will always be pushing some boulder. Therefore, the way to transcend the futility of the entire system is to find purpose in or enjoy the effort. Enjoy the struggle, enjoy the workday, enjoy the sucky parts. And not because of where it will get you, not because of why you're doing it, not because of any of the output that will come from completing it. You purely have to enjoy the struggle itself. Just like our favorite game, Dark Souls 3. Camus literally ends his essay dropping this bar. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. That's the meaning of life defined by absurdist philosophy in a very crunched little nutshell. At least in regards to Albert Camus and Sisyphus. Absurdism as a concept just says, hey, there is no meaning, but people want it, so there's a conflict there. Womp womp. Anyway, it's far from a perfect metaphor because we do get satisfaction from completing games, and Sisyphus doesn't really metaphorically get that experience. He's basically predestined to always be playing Dark Souls, which is horrible. But it's certainly not a horrible philosophy to embrace, especially if you're the type of person who will get, how do I say this, a little more emotional than you probably should be at a video game. Let me explain. Think about ranked modes in competitive shooters. You have a good chunk of people out there who get so focused on hitting a certain rank in a game that the actual gameplay itself is secondary to the output of hitting that rank, which is just seeing the visual representation of your rank go up, or in my case, down. And the reason I say that is because that unfortunately used to be me. It felt like I was just getting through games of Valorant after a certain point to get to where I wanted to be, chasing this thing that was inherently absurd to chase in the first place. I was kind of in a loop of doing something for the addictive output rather than any of the input, which is the whole game. I don't think it's inherently bad to chase the output or the achievement of games. There's a lot of people who get satisfaction from 100%ing achievements. That will never be me, but you have my utmost respect. My dad is like that. Every time he goes on the PS4, I would bet my life savings that he's gonna hop on Sniper Elite 4 or Sniper Elite 5, and he's gonna go around and find every collectible item in the game, without using Google and without using cheats, by the way. But even that act of getting the accomplishment or the achievement from that is an experience. He isn't doing it with the underlying motivation of wanting to be done with it. His fantasy isn't necessarily about completion, it's about completing the completion, you feel me? The same way that it's very possible to enjoy competitive shooters and ranked modes if you can enjoy ranking up, not just the rank up. I'd really challenge you to look at the games you play, look at the way you spend your time, or if you want to get really existential, the way that you live your life, and try to figure out where that fruit is for you, where the fulfillment really comes from, especially if you're making a game. It can be really easy to get caught up in what the success of having a game would look like, but there's so much beauty in the creation. That's why I thank Blue Ocean Games for sponsoring today's video. Blue Ocean Games is hosting a game development challenge where winners are eligible to receive up to, ready, $300,000 in funding for their game. Funding is one of the biggest hurdles in game development, so opportunities like this are absolutely incredible. If you have a dream, this is the type of challenge that can make it into a reality. All you have to do is submit a trailer of your game, even if the game itself was not finished, and then fellow gamers around the world are gonna vote on what projects they want to support. You could be a seasoned dog in the game, you could be an industry professional, or you're like me, and you just kind of make fun little things every now and then. Either way, Rising Tide is the chance to show the world what you can do. And look, even if you don't win, just putting your game out there is a huge step. You never know who might see it, what type of feedback you'll get, or just what connections might come from it. The challenge starts on May 1st and goes until May 31st, so go to blueoceangames.com and you can sign up for Rising Tide and get all the updates and news that you'll ever need. Look, from one developer to another, good luck. But if you're not going to make games, you can still think about the meaning of life with me for a little bit. So the meaning of life is then to live, according to Camus, and according to Dark Souls and Celeste and all those games that grab you by the neck and force you to endure an experience for long enough that you start to love it and familiarize yourself with the struggle of failing. But what about games that aren't about failing so bluntly and consistently? Games where you could go anywhere and do anything, and failure isn't so clear-cut. Well, those type of games, the more explorative or the more open ones, I think that they align less with absurdist philosophy and what it teaches us the meaning is, and are more so aligned with existentialism, which would basically tell you that, hey, there is no inherent reason for man's existence, but through your free will, you can create it yourself. And that is exactly what open, explorative games tap into. Think about Minecraft or Outer Wilds. These games don't give you an obvious mission or quest and say, okay, this is what matters. It throws you into a world and then says, figure it out. In Minecraft, when you spawn in, there's nothing there. You're alone. And in Outer Wilds, you just kind of get in a spaceship and go. You can go into the sun, you can crash into a planet, yet piece by piece, if you choose to pay attention, if you choose to kind of create your own path, you'll uncover a story. At first, it can feel very overwhelming, and games that do this usually are, but that's the existential moment. Realizing that no one is gonna give you your purpose. And that realization is kind of the whole point. You can choose what matters. You build a house, or you find a piece of the story and you choose to follow where that leads you. Same way that in Breath of the Wild, you can choose what stone, they have a name. You can choose which one of those you want to fight and in what order, if you want to at all, before you go kill Ganon. That's oddly the kind of meaning that existentialism is about, and it's really cool to see it unfold in both games and in real life. Because most explorative games that let you pick your own path are quiet. You're often alone in an environment that probably emphasizes that, left with your thoughts, and probably some soft, subtle music. There's a lot of empty space, usually, not just literally, but space for you to think. Space for you to fill in the gaps of silence or story. That quiet loneliness mirrors the existentialist belief that we are ultimately alone, and we are solely responsible for shaping our meaning, shaping our experience in this world and what we do with it. But instead of crushing us with that responsibility, which is how it might feel in real life, games give us tools. A spaceship, a pickaxe. These games say, yeah, you are alone, but you're still capable. Capable of finding meaning, capable of finding joy. Or not. Maybe these type of games just are not fun to you, and no matter how hard you try, you can't just spawn your own meaning. Or maybe there's genuinely no meaning to be found. Intro our third and last philosophy here, nihilism. Think about Deltarune. I'm about to spoil chapter 1, so if you haven't played it, go to this timestamp, okay? Ready, go. Deltarune throws it in your face that your choices as a player do not matter. When you start the game, it has you make a character, but that character becomes immediately useless, and it basically taunts in your face that your choices don't matter. The chapter ends with the protagonist ripping her heart out of her chest, and that heart has been symbolic throughout the entire game as your control as the player. The game knows that you're trying to be good or make the right decisions, and it just doesn't let you, it just laughs. It tells you you're not even holding the controller, you're not the hero, you're not the protagonist. You're watching this character go through the motions and pretending that it's you. It's really cool, it's really neat. I'm very excited to see what Toby Fox does with the rest of it. But for that reason, I'd argue that that game dances on the edge of nihilist philosophy, which basically argues, hey, there's no meaning to anything you ever do in your life and ever will do. So it's really optimistic. It makes you feel great about life. That doesn't mean that you won't find meaning, like I'm sure you do in Deltarune. It's just saying that meaning itself is perhaps a made-up construct, and expecting it or working towards it will never get you any step closer to it. And that is deeply uncomfortable, at least for me. Nihilism can be liberating, though, in a less Deltarune-y way. Because if you frame the world in a lens that nothing matters, which is a very common behavior for video games, it's why we don't always expect consequences for negative actions, then we realize that nothing matters. I guess what I'm trying to say can literally be summed up by this meme. So, yeah, let that be known. I talk a lot about storytelling in games on this channel and why the artistry is so important and all this meaning that can go into it. And how, you know, as a player, every choice says so much about you. And I do believe in that wholeheartedly. But I also think that some games just exist and are played because they're fun. And there doesn't always have to be a deeper meaning. And in the same way, it's okay to play a game just because it's fun and because it passes the time. Because sometimes, in the nihilist lens, the most human thing we can do is to not actively seek meaning, which for me is a very rare occurrence. But even I can say that there's a lot of fun in just wandering around a game world with no purpose, tormenting NPCs, because in real life you can't do, well, you can do that, but that's called bullying, and you shouldn't do that. But beyond that, literally just existing in a game world. That's not absurdism, that's not Camus, that's not Sisyphus, that's not existentialism. That's just you, being human, and a stinky little gamer. In the end here, I think that philosophy and games are just two languages presenting the same reality. And if you find something beautiful in that like I do, cool. But if not, that doesn't matter either, because the universe is indifferent and doesn't care, is what all three of our philosophies today have taught us. But I do care, if you subscribe, because that would be really cool. I'm not a philosopher, but this was just super cool to think about and research, so hopefully you got something out of it like I did. But thank you nonetheless for your time, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!